I got a text from a stranger at 2 a.m. I was driving alone. At least, I thought I was. It said, "Don't panic, just keep driving. There's someone sitting next to you." I'm Mark. For over 10 years, my world was defined by the absolute rigidity of the credits department. When you work in credits at a senior level for a major bank in Chicago, your entire brain becomes rewired. You don't see people. You see risk profiles. You look at a file. You assess the debt-to-income ratio, and you find the one tiny discrepancy that doesn't belong. I was the guy who stayed late to finish MIS reports because I liked the silence of an empty office. I liked the way numbers never lied and variables always had a source. I wasn't the type of person to believe in things that didn't have a physical explanation. I didn't have hunches, and I certainly didn't believe in the supernatural. I had data. But what happened to me on a humid Tuesday night back in 2023, it didn't just break my logic, it dismantled me. I'm still the same credits guy on paper, but I'm not the same person. I don't look at my surroundings with that same analytical confidence anymore. Now, I know that some discrepancies don't stay on a spreadsheet. Sometimes they sit right next to you. It was roughly 2:15 a.m. I had just finished a grueling 14-hour marathon at the office. It was one of those quarterly reporting cycles where the bank feels like a pressurized tank, and by the time I walked out to the parking lot, my brain felt like it was buzzing. The drive home through the Chicago suburbs was that specific kind of lonely you only find in the middle of the night. Empty intersections where the traffic lights cycle through green, yellow, and red for absolutely no one. The rhythmic pulse of the yellow caution lights at the construction zones felt like a heartbeat. I was heading down a long, dark stretch of the bypass where the trees seemed to lean over the road, reaching for your high beams. My eyes were raw from the fluorescent glare of the office, and I was starving. I was too drained to even think about stepping out of my car. The thought of actually stepping out, sitting in a plastic booth in some diner, and having to make small talk felt like an impossible task. I just wanted to stay in my bubble. I wanted a drive-thru, a bag of food I could eat with one hand, and the silence of my own apartment. That's when I saw the flickering neon sign for a 24-hour burger shack tucked away behind a half-empty strip mall. The place looked like a liminal nightmare. The yellow sodium lights in the parking lot were humming, that low, electric drone that you can feel in your teeth if you listen long enough. There wasn't another car in sight, no employees taking out the trash, no delivery bikes, just a few wind-blown napkins dancing across the oil-stained asphalt. The joint itself was this boxy, white-tiled building that looked like it hadn't been updated since the mid-90s. The windows were so thick with kitchen grease and condensation that the light coming from inside looked blurred and sickly, like a fading bruise. I steered my car into the drive-thru lane, a narrow concrete trench with high jersey barriers on both sides. Once you entered, there was no turning back. Your tires were locked into that path. You were in the funnel. I reached the speaker box, and a girl's voice crackled through the static. She introduced herself as Syra, and she sounded jarringly, almost aggressively jolly. It was the kind of high-energy, customer service voice that belongs on a Saturday morning coffee commercial, not at 2 a.m. in a deserted parking lot. "Hi there, welcome to the shack. I'm Syra. It is a beautiful night to grab a bite, isn't it? Can I start you off with 2 of our double-stack meals tonight? I sat there for a second, rubbing the bridge of my nose. My brain, still stuck in credits analysis mode, immediately flagged the oddity of her wording. I leaned toward the mic and said, "What? No, just one combo. Why would you say that? I'm all by myself, lady. It's just me." The silence that followed wasn't just a pause in the conversation. It felt like the entire atmosphere inside my car shifted. The jolly version of Syra just vanished. Her voice dropped from that upbeat tone to a hollow, shaky whisper that made the hair on my arms stand up. "But I see," she started, her voice trailing off into a breathy, terrified stutter. I felt a prickle of annoyance through my exhaustion. "You see what?" I asked, my voice getting a bit sharper. But she didn't answer. Instead, the audio just dissolved. It wasn't a normal hang-up. It was this sharp, metallic screech, like a needle dragging across a ceramic plate, followed by a faint, wet sound. It was the sound of a heavy breath hitting a microphone, but it didn't sound like it was coming from the speaker outside. It sounded like it was coming from the dark corner of my own passenger seat, right next to my ear. I sat there, frozen, waiting for her to give me a total or tell me to pull forward. The speaker stayed dead. The neon sign above it flickered, casting a rhythmic hum-clack sound through the air. I was exhausted, and honestly, I was too tired to really care about the weirdness. I figured the speaker was just broken, or she was some bored kid playing a prank. I brushed it off. I was just about to say something else when the car that had pulled in behind me out of nowhere started honking aggressively. I didn't want the drama. I shifted into drive and let the car roll forward toward the window. When I reached the window, a girl was waiting. I knew it was her because the name tag pinned to her uniform said Syra in big block letters. But she looked like a different person than the voice on the speaker. She was deathly pale, not just tired, but translucent, and there was a thin sheen of sweat on her forehead, despite the cool air in the kitchen. Her hands were shaking so hard, she could barely hold the credit card reader. I handed her my card for the $14.50 total, and as she took it, she didn't even look at my face. Her eyes were locked, completely wide and paralyzed, on my front passenger seat. She was staring at the empty space right next to me, her eyes darting slightly, as if she were tracking something moving in the dark of my cabin, something leaning in. I watched her struggle to process the payment, her trembling fingers fumbling with the machine. I said, "Syra, you okay? You're acting like you're having a rough night." She didn't even acknowledge that I had spoken. She just kept staring at that seat and whispered, "Yeah, I'm good." She handed my card back and then reached for the bag and the large soda. Her fingers brushed mine as she delivered the food. They were like ice. Then she suddenly leaned way out the window, her gaze never once leaving that passenger seat. "Wait before you go," she said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the fryers. "We're doing a rewards promo tonight. Can I get your cell number? I can text you a 50% off coupon for your next visit. Please, I need to hit my quota." I just wanted to get away from the weird energy in that window. I rattled off my number, grabbed the bag, and floored it out of the lane. About 2 minutes down the road, I was approaching a long red light near the forest preserve. The silence in the car was heavy, and I realized I hadn't even turned the radio on. Suddenly, my phone pings in the center console. I picked it up at the light, expecting a link to an app. Instead, I saw a message from a personal number. It said, "It's Syra from the window. Do not panic, and please pretend nothing happened. Just keep driving." When you were at the speaker, the high-angle CCTV showed a woman in a tattered white dress sitting right next to you in the passenger seat. She was leaning so close to your face, her hair was touching your cheek. When you told me you were alone, she looked directly into the camera and hissed. That's when the audio cut out. Go somewhere with people. Do not go home. She is still there. The moment I finished reading that last line, the world outside the windshield seemed to vanish. I didn't look to my right. I couldn't. It wasn't just a choice. It was as if my neck had turned to solid iron. I felt a coldness radiate from the passenger side that felt like an open freezer door, a chill that seeped through my shirt and settled deep in my bones. My breath hitched, and I felt my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would crack. I had to maintain composure. Every fiber of my being wanted to scream, to jump out of the moving car, but I was on a dark bypass with nowhere to run. I forced my hands to grip the steering wheel, though they were shaking so violently I could feel the vibrations in the column. My mind was spiraling in a way no data could fix. Is she looking at me right now? Is she waiting for me to turn? I could almost feel a phantom weight in the seat beside me, a presence that made the air feel thick and stale, like it hadn't been breathed in 100 years. The disbelief fought with the sheer, visceral terror. My brain was screaming that this was impossible, but the ice-cold air on my right cheek told me otherwise. I floored it. I blew through the red light, my tires screaming, and I didn't stop until I saw the brilliant, artificial glow of a 24-hour gas station a mile ahead. I pulled right up to the front doors, under the floodlights, and practically fell out of the driver's side door. The attendant, a guy named Mike, was outside emptying the bins. I ran up to him, my voice cracking. I lied. I told him my car was making a horrific grinding sound, and I was terrified it was going to stall out on the dark stretch of the bypass. I asked him, "Look, I live 15 minutes away. Can you please just ride with me to make sure I get into my driveway? I'll pay for your Uber back and give you $50 for the hassle." Mike looked at me like I was losing my mind, but $50 is a lot of money for a gas station clerk. He agreed. He hopped into the front passenger seat, the exact spot Sarah had been staring at. As soon as he shut the door, he stopped. He sniffed the air, looking confused. "Whoa, man," Mike said, looking around the interior. "That is a hell of a perfume. Was there a woman in here a while ago? It's thick in here, like old roses." My blood turned to ice. I couldn't smell a thing, not a single scent. I just gripped the wheel until my knuckles were white and said, "Yeah, something like that. Let's just go." We drove the 15 minutes to my place in total silence. Every time Mike adjusted himself in the seat, I flinched. When we pulled into my driveway, Mike did a quick walk around of the car, shrugged and said, "Everything seems all right to me, buddy. Probably just a loose heat shield." I thanked him, shaking, and called him an Uber. I paid him for the trouble, watched him leave, and then I went inside. The second I crossed the threshold, I slammed the door and locked every deadbolt and security chain I had. I didn't even take my shoes off. I just sat on the floor with my back against the wood, gasping for air as if I'd just run a marathon. My hands were still trembling so much I could barely hold my phone to message Sarah back. I just managed to type, "It's Mark. Thank you for the heads up. I made it home safely because of you. You have no idea what that meant to me." Then I just sat there in the dark. I didn't turn the lights on. I started replaying the whole night, and that's when the true horror settled in. I thought about the drive from the office, 40 minutes of me sitting in that cabin, thinking I was alone. I thought about the moments I'd adjusted my mirror or leaned over to grab my bag, never knowing her face was supposedly inches from mine. The analytical part of my brain, the credits guy, was trying to find a hole in the story. Maybe Syra was lying, maybe it was a prank. But then I remembered the intercom, that metallic screech. Was that her? Was that the sound of whatever was sitting next to me interfering with the electronics because she didn't want me to know she was there? And Mike didn't even know me. He had no reason to lie about the smell of roses. The thought of her leaning so close that her hair was touching my cheek. I started rubbing my face, my skin crawling, as if I could still feel the phantom sensation of strands of hair. I felt violated. My car, my personal bubble, had been invaded by something I couldn't even see. I replayed Syra's jolly voice, asking for 2 meals, and realized she had seen it immediately. She had been trying to process a nightmare while I was complaining about my order. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, listening to the house settle, terrified that every creak was a footstep. Syra never replied to my message. When I went back to that burger joint a few weeks later, I asked for her. The manager told me she'd quit a week ago, didn't even leave a notice or pick up her final check. To this day, I still lie awake with questions that no credit report or MIS data can ever answer. I still don't know who or what was sitting beside me that night. Syra said it was a woman, but she couldn't see her clearly. Just a tattered white dress and that horrific hiss at the camera. What was she? When did she get in my car? Did she slip in while I was walking through the parking lot at the bank? Was she sitting there the entire drive just watching me work through the traffic? Why couldn't I see her? Was I so blinded by my own logic and exhaustion that I just tuned her out? And most importantly, what did she want from me? Did she mean any harm, or was she just waiting for me to look? Even today, I'm too scared to drive alone late at night. I still have to do it for work sometimes, but I'm never truly at peace. Whenever I hear a sound in the car that isn't mine, a soft rustle of fabric, a faint breath, or a settling of the springs that doesn't match my own weight, I start to sweat. I feel that familiar shiver crawl up my spine and my hands begin to shake, but I still can't dare to look. I keep my eyes locked on the road, paralyzed by the fear that if I turn toward that passenger seat, whatever was there will know that I can finally see it. And I still wonder, did she ever truly leave? Or is she still here somewhere, close to me, just waiting for the next time I think I'm alone?